إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وما بعد. Today is Sunday 17th of 1445 corresponding to May 26th 2024. Today inshallah we'll explain page 413 Surah Luqman chapter 31. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ألم تروا أن الله سخر لكم ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وأسبغ عليكم نعمه ظاهرة وباطنة ومن الناس من يجادل في الله بغير علم ولا هدى ولا كتاب منير وإذا قيل لهم اتبعوا ما أنزل الله قالوا بل نتبع ما وجدنا عليه آباءنا أولو كان الشيطان يدعوهم إلى عذاب السعير. Reminder of the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala towards his creatures. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ألم تروا أن الله سخر لكم ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وأسبغ عليكم نعمه ظاهرة وباطنة ومن الناس من يجادل في الله بغير علم ولا هدى ولا كتاب منير. See you not that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has subjected for you whatsoever is in the heavens and whatsoever is on the earth, and has completed and perfected his graces upon you, apparent and hidden. Allah reminds his creation of the blessings that he subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed upon them in this world and in the hereafter. In the heavens, the sky, he subhanahu wa ta'ala has subjected for them the stars, which give them light during the night without disturbing their sleep. And during the day, also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the sun. And he subhanahu wa ta'ala created clouds, whereby rain and snow and hail fall. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the heavens a canopy which covers and protects them. As the Prophet ﷺ said that the kursi, the pedestal, is in comparison to the throne is like a small ring in a desert. So the kursi, wasi'a kursi, the pedestal, as we said, the kursi in Arabic is where the king puts his feet. This is where the king puts his feet, that's a kursi. And then the throne is where the king sits. This is for human beings. So the kursi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is like a small ring throne in a desert compared to the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is much, much bigger than the kursi. And this kursi that we're talking about that is very, very small in comparison to the throne, this kursi actually is encircling all of the creation, encircling in terms of a circle, in the shape of a circle. So anywhere you are in the universe, the kursi is above you, and above that is the throne, and above the throne is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a manner that befits his majesty. And there is a very great book by Shaykh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah called Al-Risala Al-Arshiyah, the throne letter, where he radiallahu anhu discusses the ahadith and the proofs that the throne is surrounding the kursi and the kursi is surrounding creatures. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above the throne in the manner of his majesty. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to enable me to translate it and explain it. That's one of the things I'm working on, inshallah, in the next few weeks. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the heavens a canopy which covers and protects these stars, moon, earth, planets, and the heavens are covered by the kursi, and the kursi is covered by the throne. On earth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created for them stability and rivers, trees, crops, and fruits. He has completed and perfected his graces upon them, apparent and hidden, by sending messengers to his creatures, revealing books to them as proofs for the truth of what the messengers are saying, and removing doubts and excuses that shayateen of mankind and jinkind may throw into the souls of mankind. Yet, despite all this, not all the people believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and indeed there are those who dispute concerning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without knowledge. They dispute against his tawheed, the fact that he is the only one that is worthy of worship. So some creatures worship Isa alayhi salam without proof, some worship the stars, some worship the fire, some worship mice, some worship their shuyukh, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not accept this, does not allow it. وَلَا يَرْضَى لِعِبَادِهِ الْكُفْرِ, and has promised that he may forgive any sin that his creatures may commit, except polytheism and disbelief. So the people disputing without knowledge, and they have no sound evidence or valid inherited book that tells them that whatever they are worshiping are worthy of being worshipped. They do that just out of thoughts, ideas, conjecture. So they have no proof. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Hajj, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَن يُجَادِلُ فِي اللَّهِ بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ وَلَا هُدًى وَلَا كِتَابٍ مُنِيرٍ. And among men is he who disputes about Allah without knowledge or guidance or book given light from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they dispute the truth without any proof, without any book that is clear and ambiguous as the Quran is. The Quran is a clear book and unambiguous, and that's proof that a person can use to argue against whomever denies the monotheism of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told his Prophet ﷺ, وَجَاهِدْهُمْ بِهِ جِهَادًا كَبِيرًا, and wage jihad against the disbelievers through this Quran. Argue with them in truth and show them proof about the authenticity and the truth that this religion is about, as opposed to the adulterated books that, even though they're adulterated, don't clearly state that there is any God worthy of worship besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they just misinterpret some verses to back up their false conjectures. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمُ اتَّبِعُوا مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ قَالُوا بَلْ نَتَّبِعُ مَا وَجَدْنَا عَلَيْهِ آبَاءَنَا. And what is said to these polytheists to follow that which Allah has sent down from the Quran and the truth with His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah has sent down the pure divine laws, and He has sent down to His messengers. These polytheists say, nay, we shall follow that which we found our fathers follow. Meaning they have no other proof except the fact that they are following their forefathers. So they found their forefathers polytheists, and they are hurrying and following the footsteps of their forefathers. إِنَّا وَجَدْنَا آبَاءَنَا عَلَى أُمَّةٍ وَإِنَّا عَلَى أَثَرِهِمْ مُقْتَدُونَ. We have found our forefathers on a certain path, and we are going to imitate them. So they're not using their minds to judge that which their fathers are worshiping besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Ibrahim alayhi salam used his mind, and he told them, أُفِّلْ لَكُمْ وَلِمَا تَعْبُدُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ. Woe to you and to that which you worship besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. قال أفرأيتم ما كنتم تعبدون أنتم وآباؤكم الأقدمون فإنهم عدو لي إلا رب العالمين. Ibrahim alayhi salam, he was a youth. He was 14 years old when he challenged his polytheist people, telling them, do you see that which you and your forefathers worship? They are my enemies, except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because they worshipped Allah and worshipped statues at the same time. So he, alayhi salam, is telling them that whatever they worshipped is an enemy to Ibrahim alayhi salam, except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَوَلَوْ كَانَ آبَاءُ, actually this is Surah Al-Baqarah, أَوَلَوْ كَانَ آبَاؤُهُمْ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ شَيْئًا وَلَا يَهْتَدُونَ. So they say they're just going to follow their forefathers. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, even though your forefathers did not understand anything, or they were or they were misguided, would you follow them even in this case? Meaning, what do you think? You who take the forefathers' deeds as proof that they were misguided and you are following their footsteps. So your forefathers are misguided and you're using their actions as proof and you are following in their footsteps and being misguided yourselves. What if your forefathers were duped by shaitan to follow him to hellfire? Would you still follow them? So your forefathers, if they are worshipping something other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then shaitan has misled them and you should not follow them, otherwise you'll be thrown with them into the hellfire. Next, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَن يُسْلِمْ وَجْهَهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَهُوَ مُحْسِنٌ فَقَدِ اسْتَمْسَكَ بِالْعُرْوَةِ الْوُثْقَى وَإِلَى اللَّهِ عَاقِبَةُ الْأُمُورِ وَمَن كَفَرَ فَلَا يَحْزُنكَ كُفْرُهُ إِلَيْنَا مَرْجِعُهُمْ فَنُنَبِّئُهُم بِمَا عَمِلُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلِيمٌ بِذَاتِ الصُّدُورِ نُمَتِّعُهُمْ قَلِيلًا ثُمَّ نَضْطَرُّهُمْ إِلَى عَذَابٍ غَلِيظٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَن يُسْلِمْ وَجْهَهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ, and whoever submits his face to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that means Allah tells us whomever submits his face to Allah, that means does deeds sincerely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, submits to his commandments and follows his laws while he is a muhsin. Muhsin means doing what his Lord has commanded and abstaining from what his Lord has forbidden him from doing, and worshiping his Lord as if he were seeing his Lord in front of him, even though he can't see him, according to the hadith of Islam, Iman and Ihsan. Then this person has grasped the most trustworthy handhold, meaning he has received the firm promise from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he will not be punished, and that this trustworthy handhold will lead him to Jannah. ومن يسلم وجهه إلى الله وهو محسن فقد استمسك بالعروة الوثقى وإلى الله عاقبة الأمور. And to Allah return all the matters for decision. وَمَن كَفَرَ فَلَا يَحْزُنكَ كُفْرُهُ, and whosoever disbelieves, do not let his disbelief grieve you, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Do not grieve over them, because they disbelieve in Allah and in the message you have brought them. But their return will be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah will tell them what they used to do. That means He will punish them, and He will tell them that this punishment is because of what they used to do. فَذُوقُوا مَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. Taste the punishment as a result of what you used to do. إِلَيْنَا مَرْجِعُهُمْ فَنُنَبِّئُهُم بِمَا عَمِلُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلِيمٌ بِذَاتِ الصُّدُورِ. To us is their return, and we shall inform them what they have done. Verily, Allah is the all-knower of what is in the breasts of mankind, and nothing whatsoever is hidden from Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whatever we feel, whatever we think, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is aware of it. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, نُمَتِّعُهُمْ قَلِيلًا ثُمَّ نَضْطَرُّهُمْ إِلَىٰ عَذَابٍ غَلِيظٍ. We will let them enjoy for a little while in this world, enjoy the passing beauty of this world, but then in the end we shall force them to enter hellfire. We shall force them to enter hellfire, to taste a great punishment therein, a torment that is terrifying and difficult to bear. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling them, if you bear patience or don't bear patience, it is the same. You will not be taken out of the hellfire. This is like the ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَفْتَرُونَ عَلَى اللَّهِ الْكَذِبَ لَا يُفْلِحُونَ مَتَاعٌ فِي الدُّنْيَا ثُمَّ إِلَيْنَا مَرْجِعُهُمْ ثُمَّ نُذِيقُهُمُ الْعَذَابَ الشَّدِيدَ بِمَا كَانُوا يَكْفُرُونَ. Verily, those who invent a lie against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never be successful. They invent a lie about Allah having partners. They invent lies about other things are worthy of worship. They invent lies about prophets being the Lord, as is the case of the Christians. They invent many many lies. But these that invent these lies will enjoy a little bit in this world, and then they will return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah will make them taste the severest punishment because they used to disbelieve. Next, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَئِن سَأَلْتَهُمْ مَنْ خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ لَيَقُولُنَّ اللَّهُ قُلِ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ بَلْ أَكْثَرُهُمْ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ لِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الْغَنِيُّ الْحَمِيدُ. The idolaters admitted that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone is the creator, but then they worship others besides him. Allah tells that these idolaters who associated others in worship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala admitted that Allah alone, with no partner or associate, is the one that created the heavens and earth. And yet they still worshipped others besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even though these polytheists recognized that these false gods were created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and subjected to him. So those that worship Isa alayhi salam, they know that Isa alayhi salam was created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah says, وَلَئِن سَأَلْتَهُمْ مَنْ خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ يَقُولُنَّ اللَّهُ قُلِ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ بَلْ أَكْثَرُهُمْ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. And if you ask them who has created the heavens and the earth, they will certainly say it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Say all the praise and thanks be to Allah. As we said, all creatures, be it Hindus or Jews or Christians or Muslims or anyone, if they ask them who's the creator, they will say he's up there. The Hindus call him Brahma, we call him Allah. Some sects of the Christian call him the Father. So most mankind, except a certain small number of people who were confused about their false religions they used to follow, all of a sudden decided to negate the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Except these people, everyone else knows that it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone that created all these things. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says all the praise and thanks be to Allah, because they are admitting to the most important fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one that created the heavens and earth. So proof is established against them, because if they know that it's Allah alone who created all these things, then why worship someone other than Allah? The one who created is the one who has the right to be worshipped. But most of them know not. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الْغَنِيُّ الْحَمِيدُ. To Allah belongs whatsoever is in the heavens and in the earth, meaning He subhanahu wa ta'ala created it and has dominion and control over everything that is in the heavens and the earth. Verily Allah is al-Ghani, who is worthy of all praise. He has no need of anyone or anything besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and everything else is in need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He subhanahu wa ta'ala is worthy of praise for all that He has created. So praise be to Him in the heavens and on earth for all that He has created and decreed, and He is worthy of praise in all affairs. Next, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَوْ أَنَّ مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ مِنْ شَجَرَةٍ أَقْلَامٌ وَالْبَحْرُ يَمُدُّهُ مِنْ بَعْدِهِ سَبْعَةُ أَبْحُرٍ مَا نَفِدَتْ كَلِمَاتُ اللَّهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَزِيزٌ حَكِيمٌ مَا خَلْقُكُمْ وَلَا بَعْثُكُمْ إِلَّا كَنَفْسٍ وَاحِدَةٍ إِنَّ اللَّهَ سَمِيعٌ بَصِيرٌ. The words of Allah cannot be counted and exhausted. Allah tells us of His might, His pride, His majesty, His beautiful names, subhanahu wa ta'ala, and sublime attributes, and His perfect words, which no one can encompass. No human being knows their essence or the nature of Allah's words, or how many they are. As the leader of mankind and seal of the messengers, Muhammad ﷺ said in the dua, I cannot praise you enough. You are as you have praised yourself. لا أحصي ثناء عليك أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك. Also the other hadith where the Prophet ﷺ taught his wife, I think she was Zainab radiallahu anha, he went to Fajr prayer, he came back and he found her making tasbih. So he told her, I said, if you said 4 words, you would have earned as much, actually more reward than all this dhikr that you did this whole time. These 4 words is Subhanallah wa bihamdih, adada khalqih, wa rida nafsih, wa zinata arshih, wa midada kalimatih. There are other forms where this hadith came in the dua, but this is the essence. And in the end of this dua is وَمِدَادَ كَلِمَاتِهِ, the extent of his words. Subhanallah bihamdih, that means glory be to Allah to the extent of his words, because the extent of Allah's words is infinite as far as we can tell. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the extent of his words. Subhanallah wa bihamdih, adad khalqih, glory be to Allah as many times as the number of his creation, wa rida nafsih, and glory be to Allah subhanallah, glory be to Allah as until he is pleased subhanahu wa ta'ala, wa rida nafsih wa zinata arshih, glory be to Allah as much as his throne has beauty and adornments. So Allah's throne, as we said, is huge and it's beautified, an infinite number of adornments. And also glory be to Allah, the number and the extent of his words. So his words are infinite. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows their extent. And this is the meaning of وَلَوْ أَنَّمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ مِنْ شَجَرَةٍ أَقْلَامٍ وَالْبَحْرُ يَمُدُّهُ مِنْ بَعْدِهِ سَبْعَةُ أَبْحُرٍ مَا نَفِدَتْ كَلِمَةُ اللَّهِ. If all the trees on earth were to be used are pens, so realize how many billions of trees there are. Trees, bushes, anything. So if all these trees and bushes were taken as pens, right? And then the sea, all these oceans that we know, and here it says 7 seas behind it. 7 doesn't mean actual number of 7, but the Arabs use the number 7 and 70 to mean a lot. So a lot of seas were added to it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if you seek forgiveness for the hypocrites, 70 mara, 70 times. This doesn't mean actually 70 times, but in the Arab language, 70 means a large number. In other words, if you ask forgiveness for them a large number of times, Allah will not forgive these hypocrites because they died as disbelievers. So we said if all the trees were used as pens, and all the seas and many other seas were used as ink to be able to write the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that show his might, his attributes, his majesty, his laws, the pens would break and the ink would run dry. Even more were brought because Allah's words are infinite. So here Ibn Kathir says the number 7 is used to indicate a large amount. It's not to be taken literally as 7 seas, because someone will say, okay, well, if we use 10 seas or 12 seas, would that be enough? No, 7 here means a large number, infinite number. So Ibn Kathir says it's not referring literally to 7 oceans of the world, as was suggested by those who took the idea from the Israelite stories. And as the Prophet ﷺ said, as far as the Israelite stories, we neither believe nor reject, because some of these stories are true, some are false, and as long as we don't have proof in our religion that they are true or false, we don't believe nor reject, because we may reject them and they are the truth, and we may believe them and they are a lie. Allah similarly says in Surat Al-Kahf, to stress the same point, say, if the sea were ink for the words of my Lord, surely the sea would be exhausted before the words of my Lord would be finished, even if we brought another sea like it. قُلْ لَوْ كَانَ الْبَحْرُ مِدَادًا لِكَلِمَاتِ رَبِّي لَنَفِدَ الْبَحْرُ قَبْلَ أَن تَنفَدَ كَلِمَاتُ رَبِّي وَلَوْ جِئْنَا بِمِثْلِهِ مَدَدًا. The words بِمِثْلِهِ like it do not mean merely another one, but many, many others like it, because there is no limit to the signs and words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inna Allah azizun hakim. Verily Allah is almighty, all wise, means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is almighty and has subjected all things to his will. So nothing can prevent what he subhanahu wa ta'ala wills, and none can oppose or put back his decision subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the all wise in his creation, commands, words, actions, laws, and all his affairs. Next, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, مَا خَلْقُكُمْ وَلَا بَعْثُكُمْ إِلَّا كَنَفْسٍ وَاحِدَةٍ. The creation of you all and the resurrection of you all are only as a single person, are only as the creation and the resurrection of a single person, meaning the creation and the resurrection of all mankind on a day of resurrection is in a relation to the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like the creation of a single human being. So it's easy for him. إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون. Verily his command when he subhanahu wa ta'ala intends for a thing to be is only that he subhanahu wa ta'ala says to it be, and it becomes. وما أمرنا إلا واحدة كلمح بالبصر. And our commandment is but one, as the twinkling of an eye. That means he subhanahu wa ta'ala only has to command a thing once and it will happen. There is no need for him to repeat it or to confirm it. Similarly, as far as the resurrection is concerned, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, but it will be only a single zajra, a single push, when behold, they will find themselves on the surface of the earth alive after they were dead inside their graves. فَإِنَّمَا هِيَ زَجْرَةٌ وَاحِدَةٌ فَإِذَا هُمْ بِالسَّاهِرَةِ. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues this ayah by saying, إِنَّ اللَّهَ سَمِيعٌ بَصِيرٌ. Verily Allah is all hearer, all seer, meaning just as he subhanahu wa ta'ala hears all that they say, so he also sees all that they do, as if he is hearing and seeing a single soul. So it's easy for him to listen to all of his features the same way that it is easy for him to listen to a single person. His power over all of them is like his power over a single soul. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, مَا خَلْقُكُمْ وَلَا بَعْثُكُمْ إِلَّا كَنَفْسٍ وَاحِدَةٍ. The creation of you all and the resurrection of you all are only like a single person. Everything is easy for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nothing is difficult for him. This is it for today. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to teach us the beneficial knowledge. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to save us from all trials and tribulations. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make the best of our deeds the last ones. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us and our families and our children and our wives and all of our brothers and sisters. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide back the Muslims to the true path, especially the women and the youth among them, and to make the Muslims gather around the single leader that will lead them to establish Islam and justice and truth in the world and do away with the injustice that is being done to the Muslims everywhere in the world. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give victory to our brothers in Palestine. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give victory to our brothers, the Mujahideen in Gaza. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to destroy the state of the Jews. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase the might of the Jews among each other and to make them destroy each other the same way their forefathers did. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to destroy with the Jews the hypocrites and the disbelievers that are helping them. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help everyone that is helping the brothers in Palestine, be it the students protesting or anyone who is participating in the defense of the truth. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give victory to everyone who gave victory to our brothers in Palestine, and to humiliate everyone that left our brothers alone in Palestine and did not come to their support. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala finally to gather us with Prophet Muhammad in the highest paradise for the Firdaus. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wa jazakum Allahu khairan, brothers.